So welcome. I'm glad you're here. And our subject today is help. I live with a bunch of jerks. Certainly not coming from personal experience here. No, not at all. So here, it's a common question. It's something I think that probably a lot of us have dealt with, especially if we're talking about transformation. We're talking about personal development. We're talking about trying to get better. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, and it can be really difficult, especially when we feel like the people around us are not supporting us and they're not having the same goals. They're not on the same page. And so that's kind of where this title come from. Help. I live with a bunch of jerks. I'm trying to do what's right. These people that I live with are not as interested in the kind of change that I'm trying to promote for myself and ultimately for others, right? It's not just for me. I'm trying to be a better person for the people that I love. And of course, all of these things, these topics we'll be talking about today, they can be applied to any relationship that you're dealing with, relationships at work, relationships at home, within your community, anything where you feel like you're trying to improve and people around you are not going along with you. So I just wanted to start here kind of with the basic idea that I am trying to be positive. I already erased it a little bit in the corner. But my family is super negative. So what can I do? I'm trying to do what's right. I'm trying to be good. I'm sending out all this positive energy, and almost immediately I'm getting negative energy back. What can I do? Well, first thing I want to say is this is really good. This is actually a really good situation that you're trying to be positive and the people around you are not on board, because the real crux is that I am trying to be positive, right? I'm not trying to get my family to be super positive, or am I? Do I hope that a little bit of my positivity is going to make everybody else super positive, that I can put in maybe like a 5% effort and I'm going to get a 95% return on that, and suddenly everybody's going to be super happy all the time and positive? Well, I think sometimes that is what we're trying to do. But really, the most important thing here is that I am trying to be positive. It's your personal development, right? This is your choice. This is something that you're deciding to do on your own. It's something that you have to do on your own, really. Now, it would be ideal, wouldn't it be great if all I had to say was, hey guys, we're going to be more positive. We're going to stop having all this contention, all these arguments. We're going to start being more loving. Wouldn't it be great if that's all you had to say and then everything magically changed? That would be great. But we all have lived long enough to know that is exactly not how it works. But how is this a good thing? Okay, I will tell you. Because this is going to be about your personal development. This is about you changing and you improving. And that's something that you want because you want to feel better about yourself. Part of this wanting to be more positive or wanting to make a change in your life is because there's a matter of dissatisfaction in your life. There's a gap between your ideal and how you're actually showing up right now. And that's all about you, right? That is 100% totally about you. But in the back of our minds, we also think, well, if I'm being more positive than everybody else, should make the effort and do it too. Can't they see what I'm doing? Can't they follow my example? Well, the answer is maybe, but we don't have any control over that, right? All we have is control over our own actions. And I just wanted to share an idea with you about this. I think personal training and personal development, that's a really great metaphor in a lot of ways. And so it would be like me wanting to get stronger, right? If I want to get stronger, I'm going to go to the gym. And I might hire a personal trainer, right? And I'm going to actually want to get stronger for a couple of reasons. One, I might want to look differently, right? I might want to have the physique of someone who is stronger. I might want to be able to do harder things, right? Maybe I'm leveling up for some reason that I just want to be able to, for instance, if I'm trying to get in shape to hike a mountain or something like that, or if I was training for a marathon or any of those things, or if I wanted to compete in a competition, those would all be reasons that I would want to be able to do something more to be stronger. And then another thing that I might want to improve myself or get stronger for would be so that the kind of daily effort that I do would be easier, right? So that's one of the things that we do, that I want to be stronger so that every day my life's a little bit easier and it's not as much of a struggle. And so if I was to go to the gym and I hired a personal trainer, I would never ask them to bring me like Hollywood weights, right? Like weights that weren't actually heavy. Weights that were like styrofoam that were painted black so that they would look like real weights, but they were actually not weights. And the reason I wouldn't want that is because it wouldn't actually make me stronger. I need to have that resistance to make me stronger. I don't just want to go kind of and go through the motions and convince myself that I'm stronger, because one, that's not going to give me any of my goals, right? It's not going to change my physique. It's not going to make me able to do things that I can't currently do. And also, it wouldn't make my life any easier just by pretending to look like I'm doing more weight. And that's kind of analogous to being in a situation where I'm trying to be more positive. I'm trying to be a positive force. And really what I want to have happen is everybody else to start to be nicer, to not argue with me, to not have their same behaviors that are irritating to me, right? And just kind of have that magically happen. So it's actually a really good thing that your family is not on board. It's a great thing that you live with people who are different than you, because it really gives you the opportunity to work on yourself. It's kind of like if you were to have an experiment, how you really have to kind of take out all of the additional variables, right? And you want to really hone in on this one thing to find out if it works. And in this circumstance, you're it, right? You are the thing, you're the variable that's changing. And you want to find out, does just me changing have an effect on the world? Now, my opinion is yes, 100%. That is going to happen. The most important thing that's going to happen is you're going to change. You're going to feel better about how you're showing up, because you're no longer going to be in reaction. I'm not doing it to get you to change. I'm doing it because I want to change. And the reason I want to change is because we have a bit of a closed system. So this is going back to what I call the reality cycle. And if you haven't gone yet to get the workbook for the reality cycle, you can go there to ElleryHall.com. You can sign up there. You enter your email address, and then you get this workbook that goes over every single part of the reality cycle. So I'm going to quickly write it out here. Okay, I will write it out. Our first one is our circumstances. So circumstances are things that we have absolutely no control over. And we also like to think of circumstances as being completely neutral. Nothing, as Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So that's our circumstance. It's things that are going on outside of us, other people's decisions, the weather, life events, things that are going on in the world. Those are all circumstances, things that we have no control over. And also, interesting thing, once something is in the past, it becomes a circumstance, right? Circumstance, our past is something that we no longer have any control over, except we do have control over the next few things. So the next thing is our thoughts. All right, and once there's a circumstance, then we have a reaction to it. And we think about it. And a lot of times in this T part of the reality cycle, we also start to give things meaning. And circumstances only have meaning because of the thoughts that we give them. F is for feelings. Our thoughts dictate our feelings. Once we start thinking about something, then we'll start feeling about it. I'm going to have to do another video about that, about the kind of the brain science and how evolution has really brought us to really all together. Our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are working together to keep us safe. But it's just this biological response that our thoughts create feelings, and our feelings are meant to create actions. And then our actions ultimately produce our results. And I call this the cycle because our results then become our new circumstances, right? And our circumstances. Okay, right? So results come back up here to our circumstances. And that's what I call the reality cycle. This is what's actually happening. And it's our reality. Everything that we are experiencing is right here, right in between our ears, right? Everything, all the information from the outside, we process it, all the feelings, everything is happening inside of us. So really our reality is here. It's how we are perceiving things, regardless of what those circumstances are. And the circumstances are real, those are facts, but really how we experience our reality is brought in after all these things: thoughts, feelings, actions, results. And these things are 100% within our control. Something that's very important for us to remember. So the reason that I bring this up is because I like to think of us as being a closed system. Okay, so your body is covered in skin, right? And it's really kind of trying to keep everything out. And our mind can kind of work the same way, in that we have the opportunity to choose whatever comes in. Whatever comes into our mind, we make a decision about maybe the instant, kind of reactive, instinctual, as our focus gets drawn to something. That certainly can feel like it's not exactly in our control. But what happens the second after that is 100% within our control. So we may have an immediate gut reaction or an instinct, but we don't have to dwell on that. And we could definitely choose how we're going to look at that afterwards. And so this is very important when we're talking about I live with a bunch of jerks, or rather the people that are living with me are not supporting me in this change that I'm trying to make. What can I do? What do I do in that kind of a circumstance? Well, the first thing that we need to remember is that the circumstances are neutral, right? And what I did just here at the beginning is we talked a little bit about a reframing, right? So that's where we take our circumstances, and instead of having the first thought, because this original thought is, I'm going to go ahead and erase. So we just have the initials here at the beginning so that I can write the circumstance is in. So let's say the circumstance is my husband is negative. Okay? So my husband's kind of a negative guy. I'm trying to be super positive about the kids. I'm trying to be super positive about our situation. I'm trying to reframe, but it is getting me nowhere. He just keeps coming back, disagreeing with me, having a sour attitude. It makes it really difficult for me to stay positive when there's so much negativity around me. All right? So my first thought is, I can't be positive. My husband's negative, so I can't be positive. I can't do it. So is this a thought that we've had? Yes, this is a thought that we've had. Now the question is, what is the feeling? What is the feeling that comes from that thought? Well, if I can't be positive, how do I feel? I feel helpless. Anytime we believe that our circumstances have brought us a can't, like we legitimately believe I cannot do something because of my circumstance, I'm going to feel helpless. And if I have actions, sometimes I will go into inaction when I feel helpless. But my actions will most likely be to give up. I'm going to give up. And then my result is, guess what? It stays the same. I just continue. Now, the real issue here is that, right, I was trying to be positive. That was my original goal. But then I was looking at my circumstances, and I stopped thinking, I want to be positive. And I started thinking, I can't be positive because my husband is so negative. Okay, so that's what I did at the beginning, was kind of trying to reframe this. Okay, a reframe, which means instead of just accepting what my past programming has been, I'm going to think a new thought. And instead of my husband is negative, so I have to be positive, my thought is going to be, my husband is negative, I have to be really positive? Really positive. That's a thought that I could have. And if I think I have to be really positive, gosh, what's a feeling that would come from that thought? I have to be really positive. I've got to do this. I might feel re-energized. And then if I feel re-energized, my action would be to be more positive, would be to take any kind of action. It would be to look for what is good. Now, here's something interesting. Here is something very interesting. If I start looking for what is good in our situation, and I keep doing that, right? I talk about it, I dwell on it, my result that I'm hoping for is my husband will be positive too. Right? That's kind of what got us into this whole problem to begin with, is this belief that my actions are going to necessarily change other people. And that's also a problem because I believe that if my husband is negative, I can't be positive, then I feel like I have to change him, right? And I have to manipulate him. But the real truth is, my feelings only come from my thoughts. They only come from my thoughts. So if I want to feel more positive and someone else is being negative, I just have to keep being positive. That is my choice. Okay? And so, and the thing ultimately is, our result is not going to be that my husband becomes positive. My result is that I'm re-energized and I look for what is good. My result is that I feel great. And actually, this is going into now I am more positive. And the reason that I'm more positive is because I am practicing being positive. Does this make sense? I hope this makes sense. I hope this is helpful, and it kind of gets us starting to understand what we can do. Because the first part of it is really kind of, I guess, kind of catching the lie. Let's talk about that for a second. Because we have these circumstances and then we react to them with thoughts, and that's going to happen all the time. But a really great question to ask yourself anytime you have a thought that is bringing you negative emotion, you have a thought that is not bringing you the result that you want. Oh, and that question is, is it true? Is it true? So if we go back to that first thought, I can't be positive if my husband's being negative. My husband's being negative, call that the circumstance, even though some people, you could argue that. If we were going to make it a really true, neutral circumstance, we would say, my husband said X, Y, Z. And whether or not it's positive or negative, you're going to have a lot of people who might say, actually, that was kind of a positive thing. Or you could even reframe it so that it could be positive. But the point is, the facts are just what someone said. All right, so that original thought that we kind of decided to reframe, which was, since my husband is being negative, I can't be positive. That's the question here. Is it true? Is it really true that if the people around me aren't changing, I can't change? The answer is no. That's not really true. Because really, all of the change that has to happen in your life has to happen from you. No one else can change you. And the reason we know that, especially if we go back and we're looking at the reality cycle, the only way that we're going to get different actions and different results is from our thoughts and from our feelings. And those 100% are only brought into your experience, into your reality, through the gatekeeper of your mind and your decisions. So when I think I can't be positive if everyone around me is being negative, the question is it true? The answer is no. That's not true. I can. Now, you might very much feel like it's really hard. Now, is that true? I don't know. Is it really hard to be positive when other people are being negative? And that depends on where you put your focus. That depends on where you put your thoughts. And if we're continually believing that I can't be positive or I can't be happy until my family or my coworkers or whatever, or these other people, I can't be happy until other people are happy. One, it's not true. Your happiness is 100% dictated by your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, right? All of those things, they're very interwoven, and you can kind of get into another cycle. I'll have to rename that cycle. I'll have to come up with a name for that. I will. In the next video when I take care of that. Oh, no, I forgot. Oh, shoot. This is embarrassing. This is the problem with going live. Totally not a problem. All right. The question is it true that it's going to be hard? That's what we were talking about. Well, it is hard as long as we are focusing on the parts that are difficult about it. And that's really what makes something hard, is the energy that we're putting into the negative part of it. And so here's the question. I didn't want to just talk about a reframe today, even though I think that's super helpful with our mindset. I also kind of wanted to talk about the transformative nature of the kind of coaching that I do, and how do we transform this situation into something else. So this is a really great exercise. It is super effective and it's super fun, and I hope you're going to love it. So why don't we go ahead and go with that same circumstance, because where do we stop it? We can't change the circumstance, especially if it's something that's happening again and again and again. Do you ever get frustrated like I do when I'm like, oh my gosh, this always happens. And then I think, oh my gosh, this always happens. How come I'm still doing the same thing? It's like totally predictable. It's always happening. And yet I'm still choosing to have the same reaction. So if you get frustrated by that, like I do, but it's hard, right? Because, and everybody talks about being triggered today, right? And we're like cues or these things that happen. And so the question is, what can we do to help us get out of that cycle? So if the problem is my husband says something negative, and then my thought is, I can't be positive if he's going to be so negative. And now we've kind of examined that, and we know that that's not a true thought. But the problem is that's an automatic thought. That's a thought that I've been thinking a lot. It could be for years. Do I want to go into neuroscience? We're not going to talk about neuroscience right now because I'm trying to keep it short and I'm trying to keep this on point. And I want to give you a tool and not just talk about theoretical stuff. But like I said, we'll come back to it later. So here is the tool. We need to take that trigger, and the first thing we're going to do is analyze the trigger, or name the trigger, or let's call it, we will actually personify the trigger. Okay. So let's say that the words my husband says is, the kids are the worst. Okay, now when I hear this, the kids are the worst. If my theoretical husband were to theoretically say this, that could be very defeating to me, especially if I'm trying to be positive. I'm like, you know what, these kids, they really need positivity. They don't need all this negativity. How does this help? How does this help you say that they're the worst? Oh my gosh. And now if you're saying they're the worst, how can I say that they're the best? And I don't even know what to say, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you can see how this cycle goes through. So this is the trigger. My husband says the kids are the worst. And then what happens? Then I have a thought, and my thought is, not that the kids are the worst, but my thought is, you are the worst. No, okay. You are so negative. I can't be positive by myself. The kids are the worst. And then I think, you are so negative. I cannot be positive by myself. I cannot do this by myself. If my husband's not on board with me, I cannot do it. I cannot be positive and help these kids if my husband is so negative. Right? My thought is pretty much, you have to change. Husband, you need to change because you are wrong. And actually, everything's stopping until you change. You know what's really interesting about this is then also, once we start blaming, then the pressure is no longer on us. This is another video. It's another video. Okay, anyway, back to the point. You are so negative, I can't be positive by myself. Okay? So I'm going to personify that. And when I think about what's wrong with this thought, is that this thought stops everything. Okay? It stops what I'm trying to do. It's an obstacle. So what would I think of that? When I think of it, I'm going to close my eyes. For a second, I'm going to think, you are so negative, I can't be positive by myself. It's like, it's just, how about a beaver dam? It's a beaver dam, okay? And it's just stopping this flow that I'm trying to have. So I can imagine that when my husband says, the kids are the worst, then I start to visualize in my mind this beaver dam. These little beavers come in. Oh my gosh, they are eager beavers. They are super. I live in Texas. They are Bucky beavers. Okay. They are like, if you know, then you know. Super industrious, super cute. And they just come in and they put a dam up. They just stop the flow. And they are so happy. And I sit back and I watch them go. What I'm doing right now is I'm personifying this kind of abstract concept that's been happening, or this abstract pattern that's been going on and on again. Where I feel stopped by what someone else is saying. Okay, so I imagine these little beavers, they're coming in, and my husband says, the kids are the worst. These little beavers come in, and immediately they just put this dam up, and they sit back, and they feel great. They're feeling so good about themselves, and it's just stopped. And what has stopped? My positivity, my goals, my trying to move forward, my best self, or my best intentions has been dammed up by these eager beavers coming in. And for me, I can even, oh my gosh, they could almost be like the chipmunks. Let's say I'm going to imagine Alvin and the chipmunks, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. They've grown tails and they come in with their little things. Oh my gosh, they're probably singing like a song. Hi ho, what's off to work we go. Ha 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 ha. We stopped your positivity, whatever. Like, so I could come up with a little song. I think about the three chipmunks, which are now three eager beavers, coming in. They're putting up this dam and they are just so pleased with themselves. And I just feel I can imagine myself sitting on the bank and going like, yeah, there's nothing I can do. My hands are tied. In fact, I could even imagine that once Theodore, he stops to take a snack because he's the chubby one, right? Okay, sorry, Theodore. Anyway, Theodore comes over and he ties my hands while his brothers are putting up this dam and my hands are tied. And there's nothing I can do. So I just kind of sit back. But then we need to have an interrupt. We need to have an interrupt of what is going to come in and change this circumstance. So really, what do I want to have happen? I want to have my positivity be strong enough and brave enough that it's going to stop this dam from happening. So I'm going to imagine, the first thing that came to my mind as I'm thinking about this is She-Ra. Oh my gosh, this is like Saturday afternoon. Saturday morning cartoons. I think these were actually like, anyway, it doesn't matter. Child of the 80s here and early 90s. So She-Ra, I can totally, she's like a Valkyrie, right? Or just something like this really powerful woman. I want my positivity and my intention to be so strong that it's not going to be interfered with by this dam that really I've created myself. Because we've already realized just because he's saying something negative doesn't mean that I have to be negative. I don't have to go along with it. In fact, that's exactly the opposite of what I want to do. In fact, I want to show my family, I want to show my children that you can be positive regardless of the circumstances around you. So this is actually ideal that this is happening because it's making me stronger. Right? That's going back to the styrofoam weights. We don't want styrofoam weights. I actually want to be stronger. I want to be a force for change. And that's why She-Ra comes in. Okay, so She-Ra comes in. Oh my gosh, is she like flying in? And is she just going to like, with her legs, right? Just like burst through that dam? Absolutely. She totally can. And what's going to happen? So this is, so then I'm envisioning this in my mind. So She-Ra comes in, she totally kicks it out, and the water starts to come through. The chipmunk beavers? What do? Okay, well, of course, they're going to come in. They're going to try and fix it up. She's going to take them, and she's just going to, I don't know, what is she going to say? If I had three like lines that were really going to help me be positive, what might she say? It might be, gosh, positivity is a choice. Okay. She might grab Simon and toss him off saying, positivity is a choice. Then she would grab Alvin. And she'd grab Alvin, maybe squeeze his chubby little cheeks. Maybe he's trying to sing Christmas time. What is that Christmas one? Christmas, Chris? No. You know, there's an Alvin in the show. It doesn't matter. He's trying to sing. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. She-Ra takes him and she says, only light can dispel darkness. Only light dispels darkness. And she chucks Alvin over her thing. And then Theodore, he's coming at her. She grabs him and she says another one. What could be? Positivity is a choice. Only light dispels darkness. Well, something just true. Something such as, I only feel what I think. I only feel what I think. I only feel what I think. Okay, so then he grabs Theodore, chucks him, I only feel what I think. And then with this point, she can even, oh my gosh, she might just have like this whole love thing coming out of her chest that she pushes. Did you see this? Do you see this like it's like a light orb going against, and it just bursts through that whole dam and it comes flooding out. And then She-Ra comes over to me because I'm still sitting there with my hands tied. I can't do it. I mean, what a bunch of garbage, right? By this time I've seen this. I know it's a bunch of garbage. So, and she's just able to, oh my gosh, maybe she just does something like this. And then my fake bonds that have been put on me by some cartoon chubby chipmunk beaver fall to the ground. And she looks at me and she says, you know what you need to do. And I look at her and I say, I know what I need to do. We give each other a high five and we move on. So what is the purpose of going through this exercise? Okay. The purpose of going through this exercise is to take this pattern and have an interrupt. All right. So this is something that has been happening over and over again. And normally when I hear that cue of the kids are the worst, okay, I normally go into this, you're so negative, I can't be positive by myself. This puts me on the side. I'm all tied. I can't do anything. But now I've had this whole thing that goes into, and it's a little bit different than just being positive thinking. I'm not trying to necessarily like flip the script entirely, right? I don't have the kids are the worst and then She-Ra comes in and like, I guess that might work too. Comes in and like puts duct tape over my husband's mouth and says, hey, you don't say that about my kids. I don't know. As opposed to just kind of trying to replace old thoughts with new thoughts, which can be really difficult. So the benefit to this exercise, and this is the creative aspect of the creative transformation, is that I used my brain with things that just kind of came up, fun things. So this circumstance now could be something that was normally very emotionally charged, right? It's very defeating when someone who's very close to you rejects what you're trying to do. And it can be super defeating, and all of our energy just goes out of us and we feel totally depleted. But again, that's just a choice, right? So with this exercise, when you take something like that and you're able to put it into something visual, then we can start to manipulate it, right? Because normally I would say, well, I just feel defeated, okay? Or I feel, and we use kind of all these abstract terms, and it can be very overwhelming when we use talking like that. And so this is what's powerful about this exercise is then it's something that I can actually see, right? So when I actually see what's happening, I personify this statement of the kids are the worst. How does that make me feel? Well, it feels like I've got a dam. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have these little chipmunk beavers come in and dam it up. Okay. And then what can I do to change the pattern? So I'm already acknowledging. That's what I think is so powerful about this exercise, is because I'm acknowledging the pattern and how it's already working in my life. So I'm not trying to just stop it, because so often when we try to just replace our thoughts, we don't. We don't replace our thought. And then we feel like, okay, it's lost. It's over. Oh gosh, and then I got so caught up in it. And now I'm still in the same place. Nothing has changed. But when we start to do this, we personify it. So now we have a visual of it, and we already know that it's not true. Right? So we already kind of did the work where we're saying, is it true? I've identified that thought that's having this negative response, this negative feeling, the negative result, the negative actions. I've identified that. I know it's not true. So, but I'm still I'm gonna run the same pattern because of neurology, because of brain chemistry. I'm gonna run the same pattern, but now the trigger's different. Because now when that happens, when my husband says the kids are the worst, after I've gone through this exercise, I don't have some kind of vague, oh, that's so true, because I've already identified that my normal response is not true. And secondly, I have a new trigger. Now he says that, and I imagine chipmunks building a dam, and I imagine She-Ra. So the great thing about this is it's no longer this big emotional, my relationship's never going to work. Everything's terrible. Why do I even try? Instead, it's Saturday morning cartoons, right? I can almost feel myself eating the Captain Crunch, right? With berries. That was the best one. I can imagine myself like it's in a totally different place. It's not defeated. Now it's empowered. Now it's funny. Now it's light. Now it's fun. And so this is what I want. Okay. Oh, wait. So here we have the kids are the worst. Now, what have I replaced it? I replaced it with what She-Ra would say, right? So what did she say? She said, positivity is a choice. She said, only light gets rid of darkness. And the last thing that she said was, oh my gosh, I remembered, then I forgot it. The last thing she said was, I only feel what I think. I only feel what I think. I need a bigger whiteboard, right? This is my Christmas present. Okay. So this is very different. Okay. So through going through this creative process, I now have a very different response to the kids are the worst. And these are all true things, right? These are things that right now I can really get behind. Positivity is a choice. Absolutely, I believe that. Only light gets rid of darkness. Absolutely, I believe that. And I only feel what I think. Absolutely. So now and these thoughts are going to have a very different feeling in that reality cycle, right? I'm going to have a very different feeling when I think this instead of, I can't do this on my own. I can't be positive when you're being so negative. Right? And so what's really great about this, and if you're going to do this for yourself, I don't know what your thoughts are, what the triggers are in your specific situation. But I do know that you can identify them, that you can identify exactly what happens, because chances are it's been happening frequently. It's been happening over and over again. It's a pattern, and that's why we feel so stuck. That's why we feel so stuck, is because it's a pattern. And so you can identify what the trigger is. And then what's really important is that you need to identify the thought that comes from that trigger, right? So the trigger will be the circumstance. Someone else does something. Okay, what is my thought? What is my thought when they do that? Or it could be my feeling. And then if you're thinking, okay, well, what am I thinking that's making me feel that way? Or it could be an action. Okay, what is the action that happens when that trigger happens? Okay, what am I feeling? Okay, what was I thinking? Right? And so we identify that thought, we distill that thought, and then we're going to ask the question, is it true? Okay, is it true? Chances are no, right? Or is there, it's probably not true. Or is there another reframe? Is there a better thought that I could put in there? Now, this is a little bit different than the way that I approached it in this exercise. So what I would have you do is, what is that thought? And then how can I personify that thought? Whatever that negative thought is that starts the reaction, right? Once that circumstance makes its way into me, it's through my thoughts. So what is that thought? And then how can I personify it? And a lot of it, as you can see, when I personified that thought, it was all related to how did it make me feel? Right? I felt stopped. I felt my hands were tied, all those kinds of things. And so I kind of put it into this mental movie in my mind. And I'm going to tell you something, so you kind of personify the obstacle, and then you bring in something that's going to break down that obstacle for you. Okay? And it could have been anything. Shira is just what came to me. I think it's really important to kind of keep this fun, to keep this light, because that's going to keep everything, it's going to keep our emotions in a much more manageable place that we want to do. And if it's fun, it's something that we're going to want to replay again and again. And it's something exciting if you add all kinds of stuff to this. You could add music. The colors for me were very bright and cartoon-like. It was kind of like I was in an episode of the Smurfs or something. So that was a lot of fun as I'm imagining myself there on this animated riverbed, right on the side of not the riverbed, the riverside bank, the riverbank. And you see, I added in some singing. And so it's very fun and exciting, and it's creative. And it brings the whole thing down, right? It's not the end of the world anymore. Now it's just this cartoon thing that's totally able to be overcome. So then I brought in something to break down the obstacle. And then through that, the truth, the obstacle breaker comes in and says the truth. Okay, because we want to be replacing these negative, these false thoughts with truth, with the truth that we want to believe, with thoughts that are in line with where we're trying to go, in line with our goals and who ultimately we want to be. And so Shira came in, she took care of that. She also came. So anyway, this is something that I would love. This is an exercise that I would love to do with you. This is what I do with my clients all the time. It's so much fun. It is a really great way to do it. And it's kind of one of these things, and we all know this with kind of our personal development forays. Whenever we try and improve, we read something or we get an idea and we're like, oh my gosh, I should do that. And then we don't, right? We don't actually do it. And that's why we kind of have this disconnect, even especially more of that disconnect with our personal development, is because we have an even better idea of what we want to do. But if we don't take that action, that cycle gets interrupted. That thought, feeling, action cycle gets interrupted. And that's why it's so helpful to have a coach, to have someone who can help you go through with these things. So please, if you're interested in doing this, I would love to take 15 minutes with you. We can get on a Zoom call, and I would just love to go and do this exercise through with you, because we can go through it and we're going to really get it cemented in there. I'm going to help you to make it super realistic that your brain will recognize it, and it will change the way you think. And this pattern that's been playing over and over again in your mind, it will effortlessly, easily, and funly, in a fun way, totally change that pattern. And it's going to free you up, and it's going to be amazing. Okay, that is what I have for you today. We went a little bit over 30 minutes. Who's surprised? No one. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. You can contact me here on Facebook. You can contact me at ElleryH@gmail.com. So please do. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and I hope that you are able to use this information, that it's going to excite you, help you get your feelings in line with who you want to be, what you want to experience, that you're going to have different actions, and you're going to have different results in your life. You're going to have a creative transformation. Bye.